because I've been selling my book, Ward of the State, and it was great marketing for me to market all of this the same, but it gets really confusing when I'm speaking of the book, which is Ward of the State, and then I speak of the podcast, which is Wards of the State. I had to put that S on there. But no, guys, we're welcoming back another episode. We are almost to 100 episodes, y'all. That's 100 different lived experiences. There's been so many, so many. I was actually just doing a lived experience consultation yesterday with an adoptive parent, and y'all know I'm using y'all's episodes as a resource because some of y'all stories are really resourceful when it comes to what your parents did good and what your parents did bad or what they could have improved on. So this podcast in itself and you guys sharing your stories is a resource for adoptive and foster parents and children who've been adopted or been through the child welfare system, so they don't feel like they're alone. I get a lot of DMs from people saying like, Carlos, episode so and so made me feel like I was actually heard, because that's the first time I've heard someone go through a similar experience. So if you are wanting to share your story, guys, there is a link at the end in the bio of all my social medias, and it'll also be in the show notes here on the podcast episode for you to share your story if you've been adopted or if you've been in foster care, or in kinship or any other type of external child care, because sharing our stories are how we create change, and creating dialogue creates change, and sharing dialogue creates change. So I want to appreciate everyone who's done so far and shared their stories. I want to encourage you who haven't to sign up through the link. And I also want to thank all the listeners for listening every week. I know we haven't been doing weekly, y'all, because honestly, it's been slowing down. I've been doing a lot of work in person. I had a change. We changed our company from a media company to a management company. So now we're also managing properties and media, and we're managing other authors. So I'm doing a whole lot more. So you guys will see less and less of me advocating. I know you guys are really used to me being an advocate online. I've set my schedule back to 9 to 2 on TikTok. But as far as the podcast, guys, I'm going to push them out as long as I can, but I can only do what people sign up. So I think the last 3 months we've had two a month, which is pretty good. I would like to do one a week for you guys, but I can only get the stories out as quickly as people share them. So if you know somebody that would like to share their experience, please encourage them to do so. And the listeners, thank you all for y'all's continued support and patience as we navigate, this new growth period for the organization and our company here at Diller Management. So one last thing. Make sure you guys are leaving a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 star rating and review as well. And also make sure that you are subscribing to us on Spotify. And like I said earlier, you guys can watch the video episodes on YouTube. The video episodes are available on YouTube because I know some of you guys enjoy seeing our beautiful faces. So without any other announcement, we are going to introduce the next guest of the show. Chantel, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored. So thank you so much for coming on the Wards of the State podcast. And let's just kind of start off to your personal lived experience. You are a kinship adoptee, correct?
Correct. So, I initially was going to be adopted by an aunt when I was like 3 years old, but she passed away like a day before the adoption. And then I went back into custody, state custody, and then my aunt and uncle adopted me.
Oh, awesome. So how old were you when your aunt and uncle adopted you?
So they got me when I was around like 4, but the adoption was finalized when I was in like second grade. So it took a little while.
Okay. And how was your experience growing up with your aunts and uncle? Your
Oh
aunt
my
and uncle.
gosh. Terrible.
Oh no.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that it was more stable because like they provided me the basics like clothes, food, shelter, stuff like that, but I feel like the love piece was not there, and I do feel like abuse started to come into play because they had this like odd belief that the worse the behavior, the worse like the object that they would use to like spank you with. So I was considered the rebellious child. So I often got whooped with like very thick extension cords.
Wow, that's crazy. So, were you the only, do you have any biological siblings?
So I have three brothers. It's four kids, and including myself. But my brother and I, we're closer in age, so we were adopted into this family of like seven. And then my other two brothers came like after us, and they weren't adopted.
And they weren't adopted. Did they live with you guys, your younger 2 brothers? Did they live with the aunt and uncle or no?
They did not. They stay with my mom, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. So, how was growing up? Like you said, there's a little bit of abuse, but how was growing up? Did they treat their children any differently than you guys? Because you guys are still
Absolutely.
cousins. So,
Yeah, so sure, we were still family, but I definitely noticed a like difference in how I was treated. I was often blamed for like things happening in the house, or like, like sibling fights happen, and it was always like put off on me. They also, I wouldn't necessarily say my adopted dad, which was my uncle, he didn't put too much blame on me, but he also didn't speak up for me either, like advocate for me when he seen what his wife, would do to me. And so there was a instincts of where me and my adopted sister had got into this big fight over like shoes or something. And so she started throwing shoes at me, and so we got into this big fight. And so her daughter like runs to her, and it's like crying like, oh, Chantel did this, and she like holds her daughter. And then so my adopted dad comes out, and he's like, what's going on, what's going on? And she was like, Chantel. And so like everybody in the house is just like, you know everybody in the house was just kind of pinning things on me. It was like, it was Chantel's fault, it was Chantel's fault. So I end up getting a spanking with like an extension cord or something. And then I think she just, I don't even remember what happened, to be honest. I just remember what happened to me. So I just feel like their expectation of me was just already low, because they looked at my mom as like this terrible person because she was like on drugs. And so like even now, like my adopted parents would say things like, oh, we thought you were going to turn out like your mom.
mm,
And so it was very disappointing, because I'm just like, you guys really, they really did think low of me, to be honest. And uh whew, it's just something that I'm still working through, like in therapy. Obviously, I'm still bothered by it, but
no, and it's okay, and it's natural to cry, and it's natural to have emotions, and this is a safe space, but this is something that needs to be heard because a lot of people think kinship is always our first alternative when it
mhm,
comes to adoption. Everyone says like, what should be the first alternative? And I always go to kinship because we do know that children do tend to do better, but these experiences in kinship need to be spoken of as well
mhm,
because it's not always a safe alternative. And then that way we need to look at the other alternatives like fictive kinship or guardianship because not
mhm.
all families are going to be a safe place for their family member. So I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing. Now, did the kid, it sounds like the other kids kind of took advantage of you being like the scapegoat of everything.
Oh, absolutely. They knew that they could throw everything off on Chantel. If something happened, if they say Chantel, then it was always me. And then my voice was never heard, like in these like disagreements or conflicts or whatever. And um yes, was I a rambunctious child? Yes, but I also had a lot of trauma. And I feel like in our community, we always deem things as like bad or like a spirit, because like I was raised it was very Pentecostal Christian household
Mm,
too. So
mm,
they didn't believe in like therapy, they didn't believe any of that. They just believed that if they spanked me hard enough, then I would behave, which obviously that's not going to work.
mm-mm.
So I remember being punished for like a year or two. She pulled me out of school when I was in 8th grade, and I missed like 2 years of school because I was homeschooled. Go figure. I was not. I would do like little activities, but for the most part, I was just kind of like providing support for her in her daycare because she needed like an extra person. So I was,
Wow.
yeah, so I was out of school for 2 years, and then I was also grounded. I wasn't allowed to go outside. I remember one time like my friend came by to like say hi or something. It was like a neighborhood friend, and like I had peeked open the like screen door and was like hi, and she found out I did that, and I got a spanking for doing that. So it was a very abusive household.
What other types of abuse did you like? Was she physically abusive when you weren't getting like punished?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So so it sounds like there were spankings like for as a consequence of actions. Was there just
Mhm.
abuse? Just like was there days where she would just come home and just abuse people?
Um, there were days where she would just be very like upset with me. I wouldn't say that she like abused me like outside of like discipline, if that makes sense. But I will say there were days where she was just rude to me and
Mm,
not like her other kids. I remember she had thought that I had said, I hate you. We were like talking, and I was just like, well, I really want to go outside. I want to see my friends. And I don't even know how she thought that I said, I hate you. All I know is that she was triggered by me just being a teenage girl, you know, advocating for myself. And she picked up an extension cord and just started hitting me over and over, like, and it hit me right in this eye right here. If you can see, I still have like a little damage here, which is why it's darker. And I just remember feeling like this shooting pain go down my face. And I went to try to run out of the house or whatever, and she grabbed me and kind of threw me back, and then she realized what she did, and she stopped. And so I was crying, and when I saw my face, because I felt it but I didn't see it, so when I went in the bathroom to see my face, I started freaking out, and I was just like, we need to go to the hospital, we need to go to the hospital. And she did not take me.
ooh, she's still alive.
She is.
Cause she needs I need to run these hands. I need to run these hands. So you said that your uncle, your adopted father, didn't really abuse that much, but he turned a blind eye, and that seems to be a pattern that happens with adoptive parents. That's my experience as well. I can't say that my adoptive father was completely innocent, but I will say that he wasn't responsible for the majority of the abuse. It was his wife. But as I get older and as I unpack, what happened to me, and I'm a man now, at his age where he adopted me, I was like, "Sir, what were you doing? Like, you're the man of the house." My parents were also like traditionally Catholic, so like the whole like man of the house thing. So you could have told your wife to stop, but you didn't,
Mhm.
right? And I think some parents, especially relationships, I think they are afraid of their partners, right? Like
Mhm.
there's spousal abuse going on there too. That as kids, like we really can't see. But there's that diaspora, that experience, right? Of they could be going through that as well, especially with
Mhm.
an abusive personality. Did she abuse any of your other siblings, or was that just something that she did to all of you guys and you just got the worst of it?
Um, from my memory and from my perspective, I don't recall them getting like serious punishments like I got. Um, it was I never got whooped with a like belt. I was either an extension cord or sometimes like a switch from a tree. They would like tell me to go pick a switch or something like that. And
Now,
yeah,
did your biological brother who you got adopted with, did they treat him like they treated you, or did he get treated differently?
he got treated a little bit better than me, but I feel like it's because he kind of conformed to like the way they were, and I was like very radical, very opinionated, very, and they didn't like that because I was Pentecostal. You're not supposed to do that.
Mhm. Mhm. So during this time, did you cuz you said your mom was working on with through addiction, did you guys have any relationship with your mom? Or did you see your mom at like family gatherings or anything?
Yeah, sometimes, but yes. So I did see my mom, and she was coming around like a little bit, and then she just like stopped coming. But I don't really know why she stopped. I feel like I honestly I don't know, but my opinion, I feel like she stopped because maybe it was something between her and my adopted mom, because I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know. But
And
I
have you had the chance to talk to her as an adult, your biological mom?
Yeah, but she passed away back in 2021.
Oh, I'm sorry to
And
hear that.
thank you. Like our relationship was very like weird because
Mhm.
I feel like growing up, I was kind of taught to like despise her in a sense because it's just like, oh, she's an addict, she's this, she's that, you know. So and then I feel like they put it instilled in me, don't be like your mom, don't be like your mom, don't be like your mom, like so much to the point where I started to like not like her in a sense because I felt like she
Mhm.
was this bad person, she was going to go to hell, again the Pentecostal thing. and, and so yeah, I will say, kind of jumping back on your point of like kinship adoptions and how they can be good, like my Aunt Louise, who passed away when I was 3, she was amazing. She was amazing. I don't know how I remember this, probably because it was a traumatic time, but she was amazing. And I wish that I would have gotten adopted by her, but you know, things happen.
Yeah, we can't change that. We don't have a little crystal ball, right?
Yeah.
So so you're growing up. Did you how was like getting through high school? Did your parents support you through high school? I know that you said that you had from eighth grade to like ninth grade, you didn't do school, but how was graduating high school, getting on your feet and becoming an adult? How was that experience for you?
Oh, that was rough. Okay, so I didn't go back to school until what was supposed to be my sophomore year, but because there was no like homeschool type structure, I had to like be flunked to like ninth grade. I would have had to repeat eighth grade because I didn't finish, but because of my age, they let me go to ninth grade. So high school was very interesting. I will say that like when once I got in high school, I was confined to this house for years, couldn't do anything, no outside contact, no nothing. So when I finally got into high school, I felt like I kind of just exploded a little bit. You
Hmm.
know, again, like I didn't have any guidance. I was just kind of doing my own thing. I'm like, oh, I get to spend time with my friends. I don't get to spend time with my friends outside of school, so let me like skip school and like go to their house or whatever because like their parents are cool, like let me go do this, and you know. So I definitely feel like I got on like the wrong foot in high school.
But no, that's understandable because you know you have been so restricted with everything for so long. So it's definitely understandable to,
Mhm.
go buck wild a little bit when you do get a little bit of freedom.
Yeah.
When you were in high school, did you have jobs? If you did have a job, did your parents make you pay for anything in the house? Like how was that experience?
um no, I did not have, so I did have a job but I didn't. So um when I was 16ish, I think I was 16, I started becoming like sexually active, and my adoptive mom kind of found out that I was sexually active, so I was like, well, she knows, so let me go to her and just ask her to put me on like some form of contraceptives. And so I asked her like, hey, like, you know, can you put me on birth control because I'm sexually active? And she was just like, no, if you're what does she say? Something along the lines of doing the devil's work, then that's between you and God or something like that. So
Hmm.
I got pregnant, to say the least, at 16. And yeah, so I got pregnant at 16. And at that point, I did start working because I was like, well, I need to like get a job. So I ended up like dropping out of high school. And she ended up putting me in a group home. Uh, yeah, when I was like pregnant, I was 16. Yeah. So yeah, I stayed in a group home until I had my baby. And they try to like, honestly, they try to get me to put her up for adoption, but that's another story.
Yeah, they only they see a young 16-year-old girl. Yeah, they're going to try, but you kept your child.
I did. I
And how
did.
was that? Like, after the hospital, did you get any support from your adoptive parents raising her or no?
No, I didn't. I feel like the most support I got was in the group home when it came to like raising her. Even though
So they
they,
just left you in the group home with your baby.
well, I'm getting to that. So they left me in the group basically. And then my daughter's dad passed away while I was pregnant. And so I was trying to like go back home. And so I went, she was just like, no, you need to stay there. You need to let them help you because I was the problem. So I was just like, okay, well, I guess that I'm here. And so I ended up finishing the group homes program. So I had to go back home at this point. And so I went back home. This is after I had my baby, by the way.
So where
Um,
was the baby the whole time you're finishing the program?
she was with me. They had this mother baby program that they put
Yep.
me in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean it was nice. It was nice, but so anyways, I go back and live with my adopted mom. My adopted mom is not happy. She's like, I don't want her back here. She's not ready. She doesn't belong here. And I'm like actively telling her, like, hey, like I want to, start college. I want to get back in high school to like finish my degree because I knew that I had to do something because I had a child at this point.
Hmm.
And she was just like, that's between you and your college. Like, not very helpful at all. But meanwhile, like, I'm seeing her daughters like come and like, she's like trying to enroll them in college, trying to do these tours with them and like all this stuff. But I had to figure it out by myself. She wasn't helpful.
Hmm.
So one day, police officers came to the house and they were like, hey, you need to come with us. Did you say you wanted to kill your daughter? My daughter's 3 months at the time. I didn't mind you. I did not say any of this. So I'm just like, where is this coming from? And so I was like, no, but being 17, you don't really have much say so. So I had to
Hmm.
go with them. They took me to a psychiatric hospital. And so they end up putting me inpatient there because they said that I was depressed. So I stay in this hospital for like maybe a week or two or whatever. My adopted mom has my baby, and then it was time for me to discharge. I think that's what it's called. And so an attorney called me and said, "Hey, Chantel, we just got out of court, with your adopted mom, and she's legally abandoning you." So I was like, "What? Like, can you imagine being abandoned in a psychiatric hospital? Like, what? Put me
This
back
is
in here."
so much to put on a 17-year-old who just had a baby.
Mhm. Yeah.
So how does she go about legally abandoning you? Like she just went to the court and said, I don't want her?
I honestly don't even know. I think I honestly don't even know, to be
I mean,
honest.
you can go to the court and say, I give up my rights and I don't want my child. Now, they usually don't just allow you to do that. There are some charges, but if you're 17, you have a baby, they'll probably be like, okay, well,
Well, she
eh,
ended up losing her daycare because
yeah,
of
because you can't abandon children and think you're gonna keep a daycare. That's like my mother. She abandoned me and then started talking about it on TikTok or like on TikTok and she was a teacher and lost her teaching license. You're
Oh,
stupid, ma'am. Like you can't admit to abandoning a child and then
yeah.
think you're gonna be allowed around other people's children.
Mhm.
So you get this call from this attorney and what happens after that?
Okay, so I was like, well, where am I gonna live? Like, I'm trying to figure out like what is gonna happen. And so she was just like, well, DHS is involved now. They're gonna come get you and blah blah blah. So
So what about
um
your baby?
well, she had her at this point. So I I remember packing my stuff in a black trash bag and walking down the hall and waiting on DHS to come, and they're like, hi, where you're going to be with us, blah blah blah. And they end up taking me to this children's shelter in Oklahoma. So I stayed in that children's shelter for a little while, and then like maybe a couple of days later they brought my baby there.
Mm.
And there's like another part of the shelter where like babies were, so they had her staying in that, and I would like go over there like every day to see my daughter.
I love that. So, were you able to, when you turned 18, like, did they give you any resources to help you with high school? Like, how did that process work? And then were you able to go
Yeah.
get out with your daughter?
Yeah, so they end up requiring me to like take parenting classes and like a bunch of other stuff, and I did what I had to do. And what I will say is that DHS does suck, but when it came to funding my education, they were amazing. They gave me so many resources. They paid up to my bachelor's degree.
I
They
tell people all the time, like, you shouldn't be afraid of DHS if you have nothing to be afraid of. Like, if you honestly have not done anything wrong and you're just like a young, impoverished person, ask them for help. Like, they really do have a lot of resources for you. But
yeah.
the issue is, it's people who are like, I ain't done nothing. They beating the fuck out their kids. Of course, they're not like if you truly have not done anything wrong, call
Mhm.
them and say, I need help. I need some resources. They have a bunch.
They
They
do.
have a bunch.
They
So
really do.
so they helped you with get. finish high school, get through college,
Mhm,
fund that. Did they give you any funding for like childcare? I'm sure did they help you with childcare as well?
mhm, and they gave me, when I moved out on my own, they would pay my rent every month.
So were you in the extended foster care program then technically in
I think
Oklahoma?
so, yeah,
Because
I
that
think
sounds like extended foster care where because once your mom released you back into like once she abandoned you, you became a ward of the state technically again.
yes,
And that's how DHS can give you all of those
yes,
resources. And
mhm,
then after 18, you can go into what they call extended foster care, um, which means they'll cover you to 21 or 26, and they help pay for rent, they help you with
mhm,
college, they help you with food stamp, they help you with everything, and
yes.
even your child. So that's amazing that you took advantage of that.
I did. Thankfully, my older cousin, you know how you have like older cousins, but they're like an aunt, so you call
Hmm.
them auntie. I don't know, that might be like a black family thing, but
Yeah.
but my older cousin ended up finding out that I was in the shelter, and so she let me live with her, like maybe a couple months into living in the shelter, and so me and my daughter, you know, we lived with her for a little while. So that was really, I really appreciate her for that. And then on top of like having DHS help me with, you know, different types of funding, and then moving out on my own when I was 19, and then paying my rent and stuff, allowed me to be this full-time college student and work part-time so that I can, you know, get to where I am now. Now I have my master's in social work, and I'm a
Congratulations.
therapist. Thank you.
Congratulations. Look, we love a story. We love
Yeah.
a good triumphant story. I love that. I love that. I love that you went into a career field that, gave back to what you needed the most. And I have a
Mhm.
saying like be the adult that you needed when you were a child, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of us just need adults like ourselves who are going to go back and say, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to speak up. So how old is your daughter now?
She's about to be 14.
Oh my God, that's such a I had my niece for a year and it was a fun age, but that age is difficult too. And so
Oof.
the boys, the
Mhm.
boys. And it's not even the boys, it's her. I was just like, girls, calm down. But no, that's amazing. That's so amazing. So how is your relationship? Is there any relationship with your adoptive parents now? Or they're your family? So I mean, I'm sure you see them at events and stuff. So how does that work out?
So we do have a relationship, but um it's kind of weird. It's one of those things where a lot of people, like, you know, that all this abuse has happened, and then you just kind of like, you know. And I will say, like, her and I had sat down and had a conversation a couple months ago, and um she apologized in a way. Um, but what I realized is that, like, it was kind of like an indirect apology, if that makes sense. Like, I
Hmm.
can tell that she does have some type of like, you know, remorse. Is that the right word?
Hmm.
Um, but still, I don't think. Well, she still treats me differently than her kids. So I just have to tell myself, like, if I'm going to deal with her, then, you know, this is just what it is. And I think it's the level of, and I don't know why I deal with her, but I think it's the level of just wanting acceptance from,
Hmm.
you know, some from like a mother figure, because like I feel like here I am, was supposed to be given another opportunity at having like parents, and it didn't it didn't happen the way it should
Hmm.
have. So there's there's that.
And a lot of people, when I speak about my abandonment issues, a lot of people say like, "Why do you still call your mom after everything I've heard about what she did to you? Why do you still call her your mom?" I'm like, because she's still my mom,
Mhm.
regardless of the abuse. Legally, she's still my mom, right?
Yeah.
Emotionally, she's still my mother. That's the person who I was told was going to give me a forever home and a different opportunity in life,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it does feel a little bit different when you're a child and you're like, I was supposed to get something that I didn't get,
Mhm.
and then to have those conversations with them as adults. Now, your other siblings, you said that she still treats them differently. Did they all go and graduate college and do great things with their lives?
No.
No, they never do. They never do. They never do. That's why I asked that. It's always the one kid who's a problem child, eh, and who's the one that they treated like shit that actually picks himself up and be something. And then it's
Literally.
the people that they just gave everything, the world to, and they don't do anything with it. It's just like I
Yes. Yes, and you know what's so funny is, one of my adopted sisters, I don't know. They were just so mean to me. And I don't know why, looking back on it now, I don't know why I went around them as much as I did, but I think it's just the acceptance piece. But I
Mhm.
remember we were having a conversation about like just school and stuff. And I was just like, I was learning like so much. And I, like when you're in school and you're learning stuff, or just learning in general, you don't have to be in school. You want to share those things with people, right? And I was like 19, so I wanted to share these things. And they were just like, anybody can go to school. And the only reason why I'm not in school is because you have these white people helping you. And I'm just like, you know why these white people are helping me? Because your mom
Your
abandoned
mom
me.
abandoned me. Checkmate. And that was so funny because thank you for abandoning me because now I have help.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. And so now they mad that you got abandoned.
And it's like your mom signed you up for Oklahoma Promise and financial aid. You didn't finish college on your own. It has nothing to do with me. So
It's always that. That is always how it goes.
yeah.
So Chantel, something that we wanted to address also on the podcast was adoptive families needing therapy. Do you think
Mhm.
that intense therapy should be a requirement for all adoptive families before they adopt and even after they adopt? What is your opinion on that?
110%. I really feel like it should be a requirement for like while they're going through the adoption process, therapy needs to be had, like individual therapy and family therapy, especially because this is like traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
Not only for like the other kids coming in, but especially like for me, like my aunt Louise had just dropped dead in front of me. I witnessed that, and then I get put in foster care and then into another placement. Like I should have had therapy.
Absolutely. And the right type of therapy is also important because, my parents did put me in therapy, but it was the wrong type. And that even did even more harm. So I
Mm.
always tell people the right type of therapy is also really, really important. Um, what do you use? What parts of your lived experience do you use in your practice?
Ooh, I think just remembering like as a therapist that all behavior is a sign of communication, and I get a lot of parents that are saying, oh, this kid is bad, and it's kind of like a trigger word for me because that's what I was called all the time, and I'm just like, no, like they're not bad. What are they trying to communicate with you? What are they
Hmm.
trying to tell you? And so when I have like individual therapy sessions with my clients, they'll tell me like, hey, this is what I'm feeling, I'm doing this because XYZ. And so we end up coming together during family therapy, and mom's crying, kiddos crying, and change can be made, with that. But I always tell parents like, no, they're not bad. They're communicating, and this is how they know how to communicate.
Absolutely. And I think that it's really important for adults to realize that, especially with kids who've been through trauma, that there's no book on regular life. There definitely isn't a how-to on how to navigate trauma. And if you have a child that has experienced trauma, that behavior is going to come out in different ways. Um, what I tell clients a lot is if you have a child that has experienced trauma and they are not showing any signs, that's the one I want to look out for
Yeah.
because you have it's like a teapot and it's
Mhm.
going to be just a random situation or a random day. And that child it's going to make a decision that changed their entire life.
Mhm.
I was talking to this one adoptive mom the other week, and she was saying how she didn't believe about adoption trauma. She didn't think that her son had any issues. They gave him the world. He was a great kid, but mad at the world. But she knew, but she just kept throwing money and throwing degrees and stuff at the issue and never addressing what his actual problem was. And he got married and ended up unaliving his wife like 2 weeks
Mhm.
after they got married because he didn't know how to emotionally navigate. He didn't know how to emotionally communicate. And I tell people all the time, it's really important with your adoptee to, even if they're not showing any signs of, adoption depression or um, attachment issues, still address it because we already know the statistics, right? So you may not be feeling it now, but you will in the future. So at least give them the tools. So if it does come up, because it will, that they'll be like, oh, this is what that therapist was talking about. And let me
Mhm.
use some of these tools that I
Mhm.
learned there, right?
Exactly.
And I also think that because a lot of adoptions are so enthralled with religion, that I think therapy gets thrown out the window because God got you. If
Man.
God got it, why y'all all crackheads?
Right.
If God ain't had y'all in a minute. Like and, and like I'm not religious and I don't hate people who are religious, but like I really cannot stand when people weaponize religion over therapy.
Yeah.
Like you can pray about it. Go do that. But then also talk to a human being too, right? Like
Yes.
I'm not telling you not to give up your religion or your faith. But and then I start using faith without work is fake, okay? That work part was meant to go do a therapist. That's what they meant in there. If y'all want to use the book, it says faith without work. Okay, that work, mental health work. Okay, that's what they were talking about. But they like to pick and choose. They love to pick. Oh, God said that he don't like gays, but here you eating pig's feet and some silk and cotton. Okay, shut up.
They was ready to send me to hell for being pregnant, but I'm like, I told you.
Right. They ready to send you to hell, but they abusing children, right?
Clock it.
That was without sin, throw the first stone, because all y'all be stoned, right? You be stoned as hell. Yeah. I hate that. I was just talking to my brother, because I'm gay and I have a religious family, and I'm not even like gay. I'm like gay, and like I've been married to the same man for 15 years going on. Like if we weren't gay, we would be like a regular family. Like if I was just a woman, you would be like, oh, that's just a regular Black family. Like they doing their thing, right? Like
that's really what it gives. Yeah.
Like they just doing their thing. Like it's just a regular family, but everyone's like, but you're gay. You're going to hell. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gay, but you abuse children, right? And it's always the ones like, oh, you're going to hell. Didn't you just get out of prison for murder? Yeah. Didn't you grape somebody? Like,
man, oh my God.
Gave life up to the Lord. I'm pretty sure and good for you. I'm happy for you. But I'm pretty sure at the pearly gates that doesn't exist. When we get up there, that don't exist. If we're going to go with your little ideal.
Man.
Rape, gay. I'm pretty sure. And if God looks at me for being gay and puts me on the same caliber, I don't even want to be there.
Exactly.
I don't even want to be there.
Yes, Carlos, that's so true. And I feel like because I was sexually abused, and I feel like they defend him more than me.
That's like, no, literally when I share my story, especially on Instagram, it's the worst. It's like, what did you do to deserve this? Did you hurt their son? It's like, I just told you these people just beat the fuck out of me and abused me for no reason. And it gives very much, what were you wearing? Like it gives very much the same, like, oh, you shouldn't have been there. Right. It villainizes the victim when really we're just victims. Right. And I think religion has a really, really, it does a good job at that. Man. Like, even like, oh, well, you deserve that because, you didn't follow God. Right. And I love how there's like cognitive dissonance with religion too, because they'll say, God sent me to you. But then if God sent you to me, then why didn't God help my family? Like God only helps them, but hurts everybody else. And that's really doesn't what makes sense to me. Right. And this whole idea that, like, I don't know. I think that religion and adoption should be separated. It's not going to be, but I think that they should be required to have some therapy. Absolutely. And some check-ins afterwards. And I appreciate you sharing your story with kinship, because a lot of people, even myself in the beginning, but I've heard so many of your stories like yours. So now I know kinship is a better alternative, but it's not foolproof. And we do need to do check-ins, and we do need to make sure that just because they're family doesn't mean that it's going to be a right fit.
Yeah.
And I think that we assume, oh, they're family. It's a great fit. No. Right. Or like you said, you had that one aunt. So maybe that would have been a better fit. They really should do a better job at looking at and then she already had a bunch of fucking kids. Like,
I said, well, let her adopt me. She got 7 kids. Talk about traumatized.
Right. But that's why it's important for you to be in a position as you are as a therapist, and me to be in a position as like a lived experience consultant, because we can look at this and be like, well, hold on, that may not be a good fit. You got one child just lost their parents, right? Mom's having some issues. She's not going to have enough time to give this child the individualized attention that this child's going to need going through the trauma. Like, she just saw her aunt die, babe. Like, this child needs like one-on-one. We got a family member that's a grandma? Where grandma at? Yeah. Like, right? Man. Where grandma at? But did you know? Did your kinship come with a stipend? Do you know if they got a stipend for you at all?
I'm sure they did, and I think about that all the time. Like, I feel like should it be paid back? Like,
Listen, I'm trying to sue my parents for the money that the state paid them because they didn't use any of that money, and that's fraud. To me, that's fraud. That's tax
mhm,
money that was supposed to be used for me. You didn't
mhm,
use any of that money for me, and then especially they started keeping money after they abandoned me on the street. So I want my money, or you go to jail for
mhm.
fraud
Oh,
because that it's crazy. It's really crazy. But I'm at a point in my life where I won. So, like, any amount of money is not even gonna suffice
yeah,
because I won the game of life,
yeah.
right? Like, I won. You and your kids are weirdos. Like, you've had like 3 heart attacks. You're I'm talking about mine, not your brother. Your children are weird, except for my brother Chris. He's cool. We love him. The other children are weird because they are from you. So, like, weird makes weird.
Mhm,
And like your husband, y'all are aging like raisins, and like you got what you got.
mhm.
And look at me, I'm fabulous. I have a wonderful life. I have a
Yes,
beautiful husband, and I get to travel the world, and I'm free. And you can't. You didn't win. So
yes,
you did win. Like, so
yes.
no, there's no amount of money because people are like, don't you want to hold her accountable? I'm like, I think seeing me be successful is the most accountability that she will ever have in her life.
I think that's beautiful. I think that's so beautiful, and I feel like that's how I feel too. And but like I feel like at some point I started like trying to shrink myself a little bit because like her kids, and I say this with love, but they're not as successful as I am. So I would like try to like shrink myself, and
Hmm.
she would like shout her kids out and these accomplishments and all that they do. But here I am, like having a master's degree, I have a nonprofit now, I have all these things, but I don't get nothing. So I would like try to shrink myself, but then I like woke up and smelled the coffee, and I was like, no, I'm that
Hmm.
girl, and I've
Yep.
been through all of this stuff, and I don't have to shrink myself no more. I'm no longer that child. I'm a grown woman now. So
Yeah. And the thing is, because I run into that issue not as much with my adopted family. I don't talk to any of them besides my brother. He and I are really close. I run into that with my biological family, which would be your family.
mhm.
Uh, because it's both for you. These people, oh, you're so uppity. Oh, you think you better than I don't think I know. And I know this because y'all don't even have GEDs.
Ooh.
Y'all don't even have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. You think a 401k is a number you can play at the ball at a gambling place. You think and when I talk about 401k, you think I'm talking about what is that little game that they be having at the gas station, Kinko.
Yeah.
You-
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, and they really do. And it got to a point where like my biological brother, he's now living with me. Because he just got out of prison, and like our family, no one helps anybody. And I recognize that, and I've been trying to be the person to kind of like heal the generational trauma,
Mhm.
break that generational gap of wealth, like wealth gap, trying to do all of that. And then you they're mad at me for trying to help our family out.
Mhm.
Like, and it's just so sickening. And I have an aunt who was a foster parent while we went through foster care. I remember being in the social worker's office and her being like, "Hey, can you take the kids, your sister's kids?" I ain't gonna take all 4 of them. I can't do all that. I've already taken in my brother's son. So then my social worker says, "Can you just take the little one?" Like me, I was the
Mhm.
smallest one. And she goes, "Well, how much is it?"
What?
How much?
Crazy.
And they said it was like, I think at that moment it was like 2,000. She's like, "That's not enough. I'm gonna have to." That's not enough.
$100?
A month plus food stamps, plus I was in school, so it's not like you needed daycare. I was already 7, 8 years old. Like, and then so she didn't take us in. I had my lived experience, my sibling had their lived experience. My my cousin that she did adopt, he- the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Mm.
This person, because they're trans now, in and out of trouble, in and out of hospitals, like driving her insane. She just had to do mouth to mouth because he was like overdosing on fentanyl. It's like
Oh.
just she's like 70 though. Like she's like way too old to be dealing with this.
Yeah, yeah.
And she calls me and she complains like all the time, like, "Oh my God, your cousin, he's almost 40, he won't get it together." And the facetious part of me was like, this is God rewarding you.
Mm.
this is God rewarding you for literally leaving your sister's children in care and just asking, because it's not like she didn't have space. She had the space. She had a big house. She had room. I know it's a lot to ask, but you're our aunt.
Selfish.
Yeah,
That's
you're
what.
selfish. So then, like, she's older now and she's 70, and she's just like, no one in the family talks to her. I'm the only one that still kind of chats a little bit here and there. None of my siblings even speak to her. I'm the only one. And
Mhm.
she calls me and complains about my cousin. And one day, it was a couple weeks ago, she was just complaining about like he's problematic again. I said, well, first of all, Auntie, he's an adult. So like I understand that's your son and you adopted him, but like he's an adult. And I said, secondly, I said, you wouldn't be going through any of this had you chosen some of your other nieces and nephews.
Mhm.
Or I could have helped you with them, but I don't feel obligated to help you. You
Mhm.
didn't help me. So
Mhm.
why would I help you? Of course, I have resources for my cousin. Of course, there are things that I could do that help my cousin and help you. But why would I? How
Mhm.
much?
Mhm.
You see how that just came full circle? How else do you
Yes.
need to help your cousin? How much?
Yes.
How much? So, because that's what you asked when I needed help. How
Yeah.
much do you have to give me to help him?
Mhm.
Right? And I just think it's really hard to have a birth to be the odd person out of your birth family when you didn't even ask for none of this.
Mhm.
I didn't. You went and got adopted. How the fuck did I go and get it? So I was a Matilda walking around with an adoption paper in my pocket, bitch. Like, and speaking of Matilda, you know her life had to be bad because she had that adoption paper on ready. She said,
She did.
"Sign here." Sign here, right? So I do think that reunification with kinship adoption that has to be hard.
Mhm.
um and like also those are your daughter's folks, so like that also has to be hard to be like, your aunt, uncle. Did you share any of your experience with your daughter about how they treated you, or you don't really let her know?
She knows some of it, but I try not to let my children go around them because like if you don't like me, you don't like my kids. So, and she also would get treated differently by
Hmm.
them. And so I was like, no, time to
I
get
mean,
my
and you have the lived experience. They talked about your mama like a dog.
Mhm.
So imagine how they gonna speak about you in front of
Exactly.
your children.
And I'm just, I removed because she ended up getting her daycare back. And so that my kids were going there and at first I thought that that's the only thing and blah blah blah, and then my aunt was like, you don't have to deal with them anymore. You're
No.
an adult. You don't have to. So I stopped. But yeah.
Well, that's the most empowering thing for me especially as a person who deals with trauma and abandonment, is that like I don't have to be scared anymore. I don't have to deal with any of that anymore. Actually, I don't have to, honestly. And then my best friend Zena, she goes a little bit radical with that. I
Mhm.
love her because she has this carefree. She doesn't give a fuck about nothing.
I
Like she's
love
like, I just don't care. Like she pays her bills and stuff, but like barely. Like
that.
it's not that she can't. It's just that she just doesn't care. Like she's just gonna go to Guatemala, but rent's due next week. She's like, I'll worry about it when I get back,
Mhm.
right? And she's so carefree, and she has this. She's like, Carlos, it's so freeing in life, and it's almost dangerous when you realize that you don't have to do shit as an adult. Literally, shit. You don't
Yeah.
have to. You don't got to get up. You
Mhm.
ain't. If you refuse to do things, certain luxuries go away, like a home.
Yeah.
Like stability.
Yeah.
But do you have to do? You don't have to do anything. Everything
Right.
that we do after the age of 18 is a choice,
Right.
and
That's
that
so
includes the people that we surround ourselves with
yeah. That's so
as a
true.
choice. And
Yeah.
it's insanity for you to choose to have some people around you that are causing you to be insane.
You are so true. You are so right about that. And I end up cutting my mom off. So I'm just like, if I can cut this woman off, then cut them
So
off.
you know what that is? You know what that connection is? It's
What?
called the fog. Are you familiar with the fog?
I'm not.
The
Educate
adoption
me.
so the adoption fog stands for fear, obligation, and guilt. It's an acronym.
Ooh.
So as adoptees, we've been told not only by our adoptive parents but also by society, be grateful. Your mama was a crackhead. You could have been blah 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 blah, blah,
Mhm.
right? And you got a better life,
Yeah.
regardless if it was perfect or not. We've all, and we feel that too, like especially those of us who really do have, like, our mamas were on some shit.
Yeah.
Like, like I wrote about that in my first book. Like my family wasn't perfect. Like I should have been removed. Like it was good that we were removed. Now, should we if she gotten resources? Yes, they should have gave her resources instead of just like
Mhm.
removing her children and causing more trauma. So we can improve that. But fear, the fear is the fear of abandonment, right? So the fear of no one wanting you. And it actually is worse for adoptees whose birth parents have died later on in life because we really ain't got nobody.
Yeah.
Right. So like for me, my birth mom is dead now too.
Mhm.
So part of my mind is like, maybe I should reconnect with my
Mhm.
adopted family because that fear of being alone. But guess what,
Yeah.
bitch? You're alone right now. You was alone when they left your ass on the street at
Yeah.
15. You was alone when you were in their house because you
Mhm.
were emotionally alone. Just
Mhm.
because they were physically there does not mean that you were physically or emotionally taken care of. You
Mhm.
weren't. So this fear of being alone, obligation, we feel obligated because you did. I would have had a worse life. I don't know what would have happened to me. I
Mhm.
got fed barely, but I'm here. So I
Mhm.
feel obligated that
Yeah.
at least you did your bare minimum of keeping me alive, which
Mhm.
is also a trauma response because bare minimum of like feeling obligated that someone fed you is insane. Like
It is though, that's facts because that's literally how I feel. I'm just like, well, if I don't
well, they did feed me.
yeah,
Girl,
I did get
the bar is in hell. The bar for for self love is that well they did feed me. Yeah, you were a child and they agreed to feed you. That's a bare necessity. So then that's
okay.
the obligation. Like we feel obligated to them, even
Mhm.
though we don't need to. It's just human to say like I could have been worse off. So then that guilt, that's where a lot of adoptees really start to
Mhm.
unpack their adoption fog and their trauma because the guilt you're going to feel guilt for a couple things. You're one going to feel guilt for feeling how you feel and being like fuck this was wrong,
Mhm.
so you feel guilty for that. You then feel guilty for feeling fear and obligated because now you're feeling guilty for yourself. You're like, why the fuck did I let these people guilt me to this? So now you're like feeling guilty that you didn't give yourself the opportunity to feel that guilt before, right?
Yeah.
And then lastly, when you decide to make that whatever decision that it might be, where they're like, hey, I'm just cutting you off forever. Like for me, that's with my adoptive family. I
Wow.
feel guilty to not only well, I don't have any children, but like my nieces and nephews in my family, I feel guilty that I cut them off too.
Mhm.
So that guilt does come up, but it's part of the fog that it's okay
Mhm.
because no matter what, your adoptive parent should have been helping you through all of this, and the fog should have never been created. But
Yeah.
because adoption is it's so beautiful and everything's so great, we have these blinders on, right? So this is why how I describe the adoption fog. You're going through your adoption with your headlights on, right? You're driving down the street with headlights on. You're just focused on getting to your destination. You're going through with your headlights, you think you can see, but then it starts getting foggy. Emotions start coming up. What most people do when it starts getting foggy, they turn off the bright lights, they turn on them fog lights, right?
Yes.
So we
Uh-huh.
can see clearer. That's
Mhm.
not what adoption does. They turn on the high beams.
Mm.
And have you ever turned on your high beams in fog and
Mhm.
tried to see anything?
Didn't see nothing.
You can't see nothing. You can't see nothing. So a lot of people are high beaming is adoptees and adoptive parents are high beaming their way through adoption. And then once the child gets old enough where they're driving and they're like, hey, there's a knob over here that says for fall. Like, let me turn this on. So you turn the knob and now you can see everything clearly. You're like, it's still a little foggy,
Mhm.
but it's clearer now. And
Yeah.
now you can navigate your car through that fog. But you
I
just needed the right tool. You
love
just needed to click the right setting. You didn't have it on the right setting,
yeah.
right? And if that setting would have got clicked years ago when the adoption started, you wouldn't have had to travel so far in all that fog, just barely seeing your way through.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
that's what the adoption fog is.
That's so beautiful. I love that so much. Ah.
Yes, and it's an ongoing process, and like it's just like everything. It's never you're never going to fully heal from anything in life. It's always learning how to navigate the trauma and navigate the emotions.
Mhm.
People always ask me like, how did you heal? How did you get through it? I didn't. I learned how to double dutch. Like I learned how to hopscotch, double dutch.
Yes.
I learned how to just roll with the flow and go with the punches and make the best out of everything But
Yeah.
isn't that who we are as Black folks, anyways? Like that's who
Man.
we are as Black folks, anyways. Making something out of nothing, turning a
Mhm.
dollar into 15 cents, and I turned trauma into my triumph, and we all can. We all can.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing your story. And Chantel, I always ask all the guests to give one piece of advice for children who would be in their shoes. So, what's one piece of advice you would give a kinship kid who's living with an aunt or an uncle? What's one piece of advice you would give them that you learned from your lived experience?
I think for me, just resilience is key. I feel like that's really, and it sucks I even have to say that, but that's just the reality. Some people are in messed up situations. And I think just holding on to resilience and looking down that tunnel and seeing that little speck of light and just keep going because you'll get there. You'll get there. 'Cause, yeah.
And honestly, looking at the statistics, that's all you can do is hold on to that little light. And I say that's why my slogan is always shine your light, because if I'm shining and if I continue to shine, somebody will see me. Even
Hmm.
in a dark room, even in the darkest of room, if one light is shining, you'll draw people to you, right? Or you
Yeah,
might be able to guide someone out, right? If you've already found your way out and you're still shining light about the issue, you can guide them to the exit, right? So
absolutely.
I agree with you. I love how you said that. Stay resistance, and stay the course. And I think another thing is believing yourself, because I'll be honest, ain't nobody in this world gonna believe in you.
Mhm.
Let's
Man,
be real. Like,
that is true.
like it sounds like real dark, but like honestly, no one's really going to believe in you, and no one's going to have your back better than you have your back. So continue to
Yeah.
have your own back and be real. But thank you, Chantel, for being here. Thank you for sharing your
You.
experience,
Thank you for
and
having
I
me.
really, really appreciate you. Being on the podcast. And light shiners, as always, please continue to share these stories of lived experience. Please continue to shine the light on the dark truths of the systems of external childcare. And like always, like I say every week, always shine your light. We'll see you guys next time. Awesome, Chantel.